We now get to a very exciting topic called pivot tables. We know that Excel tables can have hundreds of rows. It's often difficult to see patterns with all the data. And we will see that a pivot table is an interactive table that summarizes large amounts of data, and it's going to provide us with small, compact reports. I say this is exciting because very often we will have a lot of data, and we would like some very useful and easy way to analyze it. Pivot table reports allows us to look at the data in different ways very quickly. Let's look at our grade sheet as an example. Here we see the names of our students, and they each had 5 exams, and they're listed as full-time or part-time, and gender male and female. Now it's a lot of data. Maybe we'd like to zero in and possibly find who had the highest grade on each exam, or which exam had the highest average, and how many part-timers do we have, how many full-timers do we have, do the females perform better than the male. Almost any question that we could raise can be answered by pivot tables, as long as we can manipulate the data in such a way so that we can find out the results. And Excel will help us very easily manipulate the data. So we're going to see that a pivot table report turns data into small, concise reports. Let's take a look at another example before we actually do it. Here we have a list of employees that work in some sort of store, and we see we have the last name, the first name, some sort of classification, what department they work in, and how much in sales do they bring in for this time period. You notice that we have more records here. It's not really that important how many, but we do have 53 records. And in this example, we may be interested in finding out which department had the most sales, which had the least sales, what people brought in the most sales, and you can probably think of many, many different types of examples. You may want to break it down by classification and sales, and we'll see how we're going to be doing this very, very soon. Just a few quick points we should know before we actually do the pivot table report. Firstly, the data should be properly set up. This means that there are titles on top of each column. In this case, last name, first name, etc. These titles are called fields, field names. So in this example, we have 5 field names: last name, first name, classification, department, and sales. And everything in the column underneath is similar as far as the type of data. In other words, in sales we have numeric data. In department we have text data. Same thing with the last name and the first name. We could also have a date data if you wish. We don't have it over here. And another thing to keep in mind is that we should not have any empty columns, and we should not have any empty rows. This may create problems when we try to create our pivot table. In our example with the grades, you see here we have fields on top: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fields, and we have appropriate data underneath, whether it's numeric or again text type data. To begin, we take the cursor and put it anywhere in the data. We now go to the Insert tab, and we see one choice there is Pivot Table. Click on Pivot Table, and it asks us to select a table or range. Well, we already have it selected. If we wanted a smaller part to be selected, we could have done that as well. And we could also import it from an external data source. Where would we like the pivot table to be placed? Either it could be a new worksheet or the existing. I'll choose existing, The location I will specify to be, say, an area that big. Click on OK, and now I have some interesting result on the screen. Because it is a little difficult to see the result here, I will repeat the process, but this time put it on a different worksheet. We can see it again by going to Insert, Pivot Table. This time we will choose a new worksheet, which is the default. So for our first report, let's decide what we'd like to look at. Let's look at the average of all of the exams broken down by gender. Let's first choose gender. And notice what happens. Automatically it gets inserted. And let's click on Exam 1. And notice what happens there. Now let's explain exactly what's going on. When you select a field, Excel places it in a default area in the layout for you. You can move the field to another area if you wish. For example, if you want a field to be in a column area instead of the row area, you can do this. But usually Excel puts it in an appropriate area. So the data that we chose, which was gender, it automatically sees it's not numbers, and the data then is put automatically as rows on the left side of the report. The data in the exams, grades for grade 1, 2, etc., which does contain just data, correctly shows up in an area to the right. Now, we don't want the sums. We would like to have the average. And we can easily change that by going to where it says sums, and we can double click on that, see that we have different things that we can look at. The default right now is sum. We'd like to see average. So click on average and click on OK. And now we see the average for exam 1 for females was slightly lower than for the males. Now we can repeat this with exam 2, exam 3, exam 4, exam 5. Let's move this over, and we can again get the average as we did for the other ones. In order to select multiple columns and give us the average, we can highlight each of the columns. We can right click, and it asks us how we'd like to summarize the data, and we do not want the sum, we would like the average. I'll return to click on each of the actual columns, and you see that the average grade for the 5 exams has changed from a 74 to, looks like, an 85, a high on exam number 4. And we see if we look at the male and female breakdown of the grades, that the males in exam 2 scored higher. They scored higher in exam 3, exam 4, and in exam 5 as well. You'll notice that my average for the first exam was changed to a whole number. You can probably figure out easily how to do that on your own, but let me show you how it was done. If we click on exam 2 and right click, we can go down to number format, and we can choose number, and decimal places we can have as 0. Click on OK. And if we wish, we can do the same thing for all the others. We can highlight all the cells which we want to change the format for. We can right click, and we can go to Format Cells, not number format, but Format Cells. Format Cells will do all of them. The number format will only do one of them. And we click, we can go to number, change this to 0, click on OK, and now we will see the average, which looks more respectable, just easier to handle. Maybe we can get some sort of trend or pattern in what's going on.